I don't know where you're at, but you can go ahead, in my opinion, and scratch the whole Spencer Arrighetti starting a postseason game for you. August, pitcher of the month, rookie player of the month, I should say. Fantastic. All of that really got it going. It helps you with the 5-man, 6-man rotation. It makes you bullish about the future of this rotation. But we saw why veteran experience does matter when it comes to, being able to get out of the first inning. Just get out of the first inning. So Arrighetti, with that start last night, I can't trust him. I can't trust him going into the postseason. He's had too many blow-ups this season. I'm out with Spencer Arrighetti on making a postseason start.
You kind of read my mind when I looked at the rundown, because when I was watching it all implode, and I'm thinking to myself, that's the difference between a hiccup and a blow-up. The fact of the matter is that Justin Verlander could have a hiccup enough that he would keep you in the ball game, and even if he left the game shorter than normal or in his normal 5 innings, he probably would have given up about 4 runs in that game and kept you somewhat above water and in it. Arrighetti, on the other hand, we've seen it before earlier in the season. When he goes, and he goes full tilt. And, that thing just kept getting from bad to worse to like completely out of hand in the first inning, and you basically had no shot. And that's something you can't take the risk of having happen when you're in a playoff series. No matter what. But when you're handing the baseball in such an important event as like one of your top 3 pitchers, or in the case of a longer series, 4 pitchers, I just can't see them doing that right now.
Yesterday was a bit of Murphy's Law when it comes to Arrighetti's start, because he didn't pitch well. First batter, home run. He's not getting the swing and miss that he normally gets. He was asked after the game, too, if he felt like he was tipping, and Arrighetti's like, I really doubt it. Said if he was, then that's on him for allowing it to get to that point. He said he would do his due diligence to see if he was, but he completely dismissed the idea that he was tipping. I think part of it was, hey, I'm going to take accountability for my poor outing. Now, he did allude to the fact that he felt there was times earlier this year that he was tipping. I don't know if that was the case. Like, the pitches he was executing weren't very good. There was times where he got soft contact. Like, there was times when the defense could have helped him out. That little fly ball into center field. Tough play. If Chas McCormick makes that play, it's a really good play. So I'm not blaming Chas McCormick, but make a really good play, help your pitcher out. The Jeremy Pena ball up the middle that should have been an error was not called an error, which really hurt Spencer Arrighetti's line score. So, like, everything that could go wrong in the first inning yesterday went wrong. Arrighetti was poor, wasn't very good. Tip your cap, I guess, to the Cincinnati Red Stockings. And then the defense wasn't very good. That didn't help Spencer Arrighetti behind him either.
Yeah, defense has been a theme lately, and it's frustrating. I think, we'll talk about, like as you mentioned, today's game, and at least from that standpoint, I thought it was better. But I think that, Pena's kind of in his head a little bit now, too. But it hasn't been great lately. And you look at it and you say, okay, it's got to be better. And we know that. We've discussed it. But overall, I just think that, this is one of those series where it's hard to put your finger on the fact that whenever you play the Orioles, you play big series or big pitchers, this team just seems to rise to the top. And when you play teams that are down and out, like the White Sox, where you've had a hiccup or two, like the Reds, where you just can't seem to figure out a way, that's what makes it so frustrating, because you're coming off a roll where you dominated the Royals. You looked like you were just going to coast past the Mariners, and you were going to ride. You had a legit chance of catching the 2 teams in front of you to get a bye, and then you just completely crapped the bed for 3 games, and that's what makes you scratch your head.
Yeah, it was not a good series for the Astros. But talking about it from the Arrighetti perspective, yeah, I mean, you have 3 guys ahead of you that you rather have in a playoff rotation. We were kicking around the idea of Arrighetti or like Kikuchi, depending on the other team's lineup. Well, that conversation's over. It's Kikuchi. Kikuchi's higher on the pecking order than Spencer Arrighetti. And will this change? Probably. Like, you still have 4 more starts for all of these guys, but your dudes up top are Framber and Hunter Brown. There's no debate there. You say Kikuchi to me is your number 3. That's right. And if you're having the conversation after that, Verlander, Blanco, Arrighetti. Like, I'd probably rather have Blanco, but they're going to give it to Verlander.
Yeah,
that's your 4-man playoff rotation. Now, what could really throw a wrench into this is that the Astros are probably going to be in the wild card series if they're fortunate enough to hang on to win the division.
Yeah, look, I mean, everybody's doing you a favor, and you got a couple of solids again last night. You didn't get one from Seattle, who finally found a way to scratch out a win. But overall, it doesn't look like the writing's on the wall that you're not going to get that. And so you're going to have to be prepared for that. So therefore, you kind of set it up like you just said, and I think you nailed it. I think the 3 guys that were, I don't know for Brian for sure, but I think we're all pretty much in agreement that I would do the exact same thing. I'd go Framber, Hunter Brown, and then go to Kikuchi. And then you work your way from there. But I think from an from an organizational standpoint, Verlander's going to be in the mix. I think that the wild card is going to be interesting because I think Kikuchi is better and better prepared right now and all the way ramped up. But I just have a feeling that they're going to try and squeeze Verlander between now and the end of the season into that third start if they need one.
I mean, I do agree that if it's a three-man rotation because you're in the wild card series, that's the three. It's Framber, Hunter Brown, and Kikuchi in that order. I do feel like judging Arrighetti or basing it off last night's a little unfair, and it's a little bit of a box score hot take because you see the 9 earned runs. But as Jeremy, you mentioned earlier, Jeremy Pena makes that play, which I thought should have been an error too, but they didn't. They gave him the earned runs. Then he's out of the first inning after 3 earned runs. Now, he could have continued to blow up after that, so we'll never know for sure if he would have rebounded and settled in. But if he gets out of that inning with 3 earned runs and settles in and maybe gives you kind of, Joel, what you're talking about, the Verlander, where, hey, you struggle, but you get through 5, you give up 4, then I don't think the conversation today is the same as what we're having now.
Well, I think it was already a tie with Kikuchi and Arrighetti, and maybe not even a tie. Like, it leaned towards Kikuchi. Like, that was the conversation we had the other day, is that if you're naming a 3-man rotation, you're leaning to Kikuchi over Arrighetti, Arrighetti's over your 4, and you're kicking out Justin Verlander. Now, the difference between, like, Arrighetti laboring and Verlander laboring is Verlander gives you innings.
He does.
He gives you innings. Arrighetti, and yes, he could have had some help defensively. He didn't make it out of the first. That was very Christian Javier, Game 7 ALCS of him. Couldn't get out of the first inning.
Because now you're taxing the rest of the bullpen because you got to pick up 7 and a third, and they're going to have to all try and do their best to try and just keep it where it's at, even though for all intent and purposes, it's out of reach. And it just doesn't – it's not the same thing. It's like the difference between just throwing and the art of truly pitching, and Verlander can do that. I mean, he knew he was getting squeezed a little bit, but you know what? He still found a way to get out of bases loaded, nobody out, without having that kind of blowout like you saw last night, and he ate up some innings. So it's a tough call to make, and Brian, maybe you're right, because maybe, it's the one-game sample size that kind of throws you off. But you can't afford to have a guy that blows up to that level. You can't afford to have a guy that when things don't go exactly your way, that can't right the ship enough to kind of, chart the waters and say, we're going to be okay. I'm going to make sure that we have a chance in this ballgame.
I just don't know how you can put that out of your mind. Like, it was such a bad outing that that he's capable of giving up a 9 spot in the first inning. Like, I laughed a little bit whenever they went to break and TK's like, Arrighetti gives up 9 in the first. Like, that's a dream. Like, that's a nightmare. That's a parody. Like, he gave up 9 in the first? What? Like, it was funny. Like, it was funny to me the way that he went to break saying Arrighetti with a 9 spot in the first. Like, okay.
Scary.
Like, you can't forget that. That's something that's going to live with you whenever you're deciding who's making postseason starts.
Well, we've seen it before, too.
Should you get there?
It hasn't been to that crossed my mind, by the way. But the fact that he gave up 9, that doesn't always happen. But we've seen him not be able to get out of the first before this season. So, yes, in August, he was rolling. He was fantastic. But overall, this isn't the first time we've seen this, which is why you probably raise your level of concern. Yeah.
713-780-ESPN 6030. Good thing is we brought Chaz back, so this lineup has been bolstered. They kind of had to because of the paternity leave for Jake Myers, and then they had to make that transaction today because you have to make a decision after the third day. So Myers was on the roster today but was not actually in Cincinnati. But you had nobody else to play center field. So, like, what are you going to do there? And then Key from L.A., what is tipping? Tipping's whenever you're giving up your pitches based on something that you're doing with the ball or the glove or your posture. The most famous one in Houston is Tyler Glasnow in the playoffs, where he was like holding the glove up to his letters on breaking ball, and he was putting the glove at his belt buckle with fastball. So it's very easy. If a hitter is able to pick that up, he's coming set at the belt buckle for a heater. Well, you know a heater's coming. He's coming set at the letters with a breaking ball. You know breaking ball is coming. And if you know the pitch, then it could be a bit advantageous because you can kind of spit on some pitches. You can kind of get your timing, all of that. So that's what tipping is, where the opponent has your pitches based on some sort of body manner that you're doing.
Yeah, you watch the Mariners staff do it. They've all gotten into the habit. I don't know if they're teaching it in spring training now or what, but the other thing is whenever guys were going to change their grip for a breaking pitch, a lot of times the glove would wiggle a little bit. Now you see all the Mariners guys, they're wiggling their glove the entire time before they start going into the delivery. So, yeah, I mean, it happens. You're right. The Glasnow is one that always comes to my mind, too. You hope he wasn't. These kind of things happen. They've happened in the past. But those things, you can clean that stuff up. I just don't trust him right now in the case of Arrighetti regardless of whether he was tipping or not, I don't trust him to go out there in a playoff game and not have the better than average chance of blowing up a little bit.
My best guess is that he was not tipping, though. Like,
I agree with
he
that.
wasn't getting the swing and miss, but he also wasn't like, yes, he gave up some hard contact. But usually if you're tipping, like it's seed, laser, seed, rope, seed. Like there was some weak contact in that first inning.
There was. No, there's no denying that. I was listening to the game on the way home, and Sparky was talking about the fact that the Reds have this guy that throws batting practice that tries to emulate as close as possible to a lot of guys' deliveries and everything, and tries to get the same kind of velocity. And he thought that kind of was a key, that the Reds were kind of comfortable with the way he delivered the baseball and where the pitches were going to be. Regardless of what it was, they were on it. Home run double, and then the doors completely get blown off.
Well, there's pitching machines that you can set up now where it shows you the exact arm slot and the exact pitch, velo, spin that the pitcher is going to give you.
That's pretty cool.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that they have that benefits hitters, and it's still hard to hit. It's still hard to hit.
We're not far away too from the video screen with the ball release point too, where they do that, where it looks like the actual pitcher on the mound.